About an hour and a half from my home in Halifax is Taylor Head Provincial Park. Compared with other places across Nova Scotia, this area in particular is one I've never spent much time in, and I knew I had to change that. With a Connie at work and a nice summer day in hand, I wanted to spend a full 8 hours away from the city, connecting with nature. For this adventure, I was going to be following the entire headland and Spry Bay loop, a 7.3 kilometer or 4.5 mile trail following the red trail markers. So one thing I want to know is how muddy are these trails that these are here, but the rest of this is not. These sections must be super muddy, as I'm already on the trail only 5 minutes, and the mud's already taken a toll. Mud is no stranger to Nova Scotia hiking trails. Having lots of rain, even during our summers, it's best to prepare for all hiking conditions, and it's best advised to bring a good pair of hiking boots with you. As noted, some of the more mud-prone areas have been covered by boardwalk. Not only does this keep your feet clean and dry, it helps protect the natural landscape, as hikers often veer off into the woods to get around the mud, potentially stepping on plants that can't handle this type of agitation. After what seemed to be no time at all, I was at the coast. Nova Scotia is known as Canada's ocean playground. With over 13,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles of coastline, it's not hard to find a great trail with some great ocean scenery. Did you know that Nova Scotia is almost an island? With the exception of a small strip of land connecting us to New Brunswick, Nova Scotia is completely surrounded by water. It's here, along these chilly North Atlantic waters, that you can see a variety of plants, animals, and seabirds. I like taking the time when I'm here to peer over and just watch and listen. Perhaps one of the most enjoyable sounds is listening to the waves coming in and crashing on the shore. As the water retreats back into the ocean, the sound of the water rushing over the rocks and pebbles on the beach creates a kaleidoscope of sound. Seagrass, seaweed, and snails are left behind as the tides move in and out, in effect controlled by the influence of the moon. It's amazing how connected we are. Even a mass in the heavens can make a change here on Earth. Our Earth is fragile, and we need to do our best to keep it running strong. But as things seem to be, it's slowly shifting to a state of unrest, and that's one reason I'm determined to travel it now. After spending some time rehydrating and resting up, I continued along the hike. You'll notice, as you progress, the hike continues to skirt the water's edge. Instead of breaking things up with patches of wood connecting the strings of seaside trails, the hike opens up, keeping the water in view for almost 100% of the time. Unlike places like Newfoundland, where we traveled last summer, our waterside locations aren't met with super-sized mountains looking down from their lakeside home. With the exception of Highlands National Park, a location we'll visit in an upcoming series, our landscape is practically flat, especially when you're next to the water's edge. For example, our hike today had an elevation gain of only 68 meters, or 225 feet, most of which was spread out along the entire trail, keeping things relatively easy the entire time. As I walked, I enjoyed the cloud-free summer sky. About halfway through the hike, I came to a fantastic rocky beach. Although most of it was pebbled, there was a small section that had some sand. The landscape here was dotted with several large rocks. So luckily, I have found another spot where I can actually take a seat, have a rest, enjoy this amazing view. We got some people coming. I'm going to enjoy my lunch. I'm making sure I'm drinking lots of water. That is super important when it comes to hikes. Staying hydrated, staying nourished. And with that, I unpacked my lunch that Akane lovingly made me from my waterproof backpack from Fay Active. I sat and enjoyed my meal. I never used to bring any food with me while hiking. Lately, however, my mentality has began to shift, and I realized that beyond just refueling my body halfway through, it forces me to sit, slow down, and enjoy the trail for more than just the exercise. As I sat, I took in the scenery. By the end, I even had a chance to chat with other hikers, people just like me who wanted to get out and enjoy nature. That's the beauty about taking time to talk with people while you're on a hike or while you travel. It's amazing how quickly you'll connect with these people that are just out enjoying the same activities you are. Letting them carry on, I came to the point of the trail where it split, at a beautiful boardwalk crossing. It's here that you make a decision to head back to the car or continue the trail along another stretch of coastline. So this bridge is a turning point where it goes from the red trail to the yellow trail. If you wanted to continue the red trail, it will take you back to the parking lot. It cuts you off at about a 3.5 kilometer hike. I'm going to continue on the yellow trail, which is a continuation of all of Taylor Head, for a total of about 7.3 kilometers. For me, it was no decision. I was continuing on. Once again, I found myself surrounded by the thick woods. But you won't walk through the forest of pine and birch long, however, before you are thrown back out to the open seaside. Pressing on, you'll come to an area that for the most part is bare. But as I took notice, there was a really distinct feature here, this giant rock. But how did it get here? As I got closer, the rock was massive, just as tall as me and a few thousand pounds heavier. So anytime I see a rock like this, I love taking the opportunity to ask you, how do you think a rock this size got here? Obviously, there's no person or no machine that's going to be taking the time to bring this rock and place it down into essentially the middle of nowhere. So how, with everything so barren, did this rock get here? Well, it's because of glaciation and from the last ice age. So as ice began to melt, the ice moved towards what is now the seashore level. And as it melted, these heavier rocks were shifted towards the water. At some point, it rested in place. The ice around this melted and left this rock into place. And that's why we see, at least here in Nova Scotia, how these big rocks can be found in places like this. What about the crack? How could have that happened? It's not like the rock fell and broke apart. Although there's no way for me to know for sure, my best guess takes me back to university, where I learned about freeze fracturing, something that is very common in the Canadian winters. What happens is rain or snow fills the holes and cracks within the rock. As water freezes, it turns to ice, and what happens? It expands. Think of a plastic water bottle. If you leave a full water bottle so that it freezes, you'll likely find it cracked open the next morning. As ice forms, it exerts a force outward. It's strong enough to crack the plastic, and it's even strong enough to crack a rock. Now, it won't crack a rock like this all at once, but over decades, this process slowly chips away at the rock, creating a bigger and deeper crack with repeated freezing and then melting, freezing and then melting. Eventually, over time, the rock cracks and splits apart. The same things happen to our roads. Anyone who has driven in a place that has snow knows all too well how many potholes we have. Freeze fracturing is to blame, at least in part. It starts the process, and then as cars and trucks drive over the created holes, our tires slowly chip away at the edges, making the holes bigger and bigger. It's a constant problem that requires repair every year, at least here in Nova Scotia anyway. These signs are so handy. There are so many times when you're on the trail and you have no idea how far you are along it. So oftentimes you have to rely on your GPS or you have to rely on your map, and these just make it so much easier, and it's such a rewarding point along the trail in order to get to these and see how much progress. Continuing on, I came across a picnic table overlooking a particularly beautiful part of the coast. I wouldn't have wanted to be the person who had to drag this table out here, but it couldn't be a more beautiful spot and a perfect place to sit down, rehydrate, and enjoy the view. After resting up, I was ready to finish up the hike. The last stretch was perhaps the most challenging, with some less than straightforward trail conditions. After spending the day at Taylor Head Provincial Park, it made me wonder why I never spent any time in this part of the province. If this park and this hike were any indication of what I could expect from other parts of the area, the decision to come back was easy. What else did I find in the area? You'll have to come back for another video to find out. To learn more about what we have here in Nova Scotia, come read one of our informative travel guides on our website at joshtravelguide.ca. Looking for something a little more hands-on? Why not join us for a guided tour as we explore the region's best attractions? We offer everything from an afternoon jaunt to a 3-day excursion, allowing you to be immersed in everything Nova Scotia. Like the video? Why not do us a favor and share it with a friend, because together we can share the world.